Hello once again, everyone. So, as the title would suggest, I've kind of got a new series in the works. So, those of you that have been fans of moveset breakdowns, I will be returning to that at some point. I'm just a little burnt out on it at the moment, and I haven't really been feeling particularly inspired. So, instead, what I decided to do is something I've had in mind for a while, which is going over first or second hand accounts of fights that went down, preferably attached to a system or master in some way, and then reenacting them essentially. Now we're not going to be reenacting them in full speed. All it's going to be is I'm just going to talk through the description and we'll just kind of see what things might have looked like. And the one I wanted to start off with comes to us from a very unique master. So his name was Colonel Monstery, and he was originally a Danish individual who was born and then raised in the kind of Danish military system. He ended up becoming a soldier of fortune and fought mostly in Latin America during the 19th century, before eventually opening up a couple fencing schools across the US. The most famous one was, of course, in New York, because why would it not be? And while we can't necessarily attest all of his stories or the stories about him are true, especially from that time in Latin America, certainly a lot of his stuff, once he started teaching, has newspaper articles or eyewitness accounts that we can more closely confirm or otherwise, things along those lines. And another thing to consider is that, especially in regards to his students that he then spawned, he's kind of directly responsible for a lot of some of the best fencers, including one of the best female fencers, who I will put an article about her down below if you want to read more. But either way, Monstery decided to publish a series of articles in the newspaper, essentially, that was framed at self-defense for gentlemen and ladies. It focused on boxing. It focused on, actually had a little bit of quarterstaff, as well as the cane. Now the cane that I am using right now is my cane, not the cane that Monstery recommends. He actually recommends one with a hook, and there also are other reasons you might want that hook, but this will work the same. It's a stout hickory stick, and it will do what I need it to do. Helping me as well today is Randy, who is going to be my assailant. So the bit that we're going to be going through today is one of the points that Monstery uses to illustrate in his cane section. And that being an instance where he was walking with who he thought was a friend. They'd been hanging around for a while, and they're walking back from a party, basically, in the middle of the night. And this is, I believe, in Philadelphia. But they're out on a country road, basically. He knows that his buddy wears a knife right here underneath his left arm. He's seen it multiple times. And in his own words, that wasn't weird at the time. Taking into account this is about the 1870s or 1880s, so it's really not that strange for people to go going about armed. So he knows that knife is there, and he even kind of talks about how he's kind of mentally going back and forth about, oh, but this guy's been so friendly to me, but it's also really suspicious. I don't really know, right? So, since they're going to be walking back from this party through the dark, and there's no one around, at first, Monstery has taken his arm. Now, another important thing to remember is that society at the time, this is not weird for two gentlemen to do. This is perfectly normal, and it also makes a lot of sense. So my cane is on this side, and I'm controlling his dominant arm. He can't reach that knife very easily, which means that if he does, I'll either feel it from that, or he'll have to free his arm first, which gives me a leg up. But eventually, after walking around like this for a while, Monstery decides he can trust the gentleman and releases his arm, and now they're walking more side by side, right? Now, at some point as they're walking around, so we're toodalooing, right? At some point as we're walking around, he's going to pull that knife and attempt to stab the heart, just like that. Now, we don't know what grip he went for. It could have been ice pick, or it could have been sword grip. We don't know. Based upon how the draw is feeling, at least at current, ice pick seems to be a little bit easier, and it certainly would work quite smoothly. Randy has the heavy on, which is making it a little bit less dexterous than it would be. He's going to need it later. But this draw coming out is pretty freaky. And all Monstery can do, because remember, it's in the middle of the night, when this draw comes out, all he does is he sees the flash, and he just leans away. So he does still eat a stab in between his elbow and shoulder, so right in the middle. And according to him, it does hit bone. He just felt this sort of numbness sensation. But at the time, he just knew he'd been hit. But he hadn't been hit that badly. So as soon as that hit lands, what he's going to do is he's going to switch his grip on his cane, and he's going to try and back away while executing a series of Milanese. So in this case, I'm going to try and back away and just keep that stick moving. Now, this correlates directly with his cane advice, which is, for the majority of it, you're just going to be executing Milanese from both sides. The idea being that my main targets here against someone wielding a knife are going to be striking the lead wrist multiple times, which he can't defend against very easily, or if he's pulling that arm back, I strike for the temple instead. 1, 2, 1, 2, just back and forth. So even if Randy continues to harass me, it can only take so many of those before he decides he's done. But let's go over the full situation one more time. So, Randy here is my dear friend, and I trust him. I trust you so much, in fact, I think I'm going to let your arm go. And we're walking, and he decides to do something horrible. Oh no! Escape. And just wait. Now, I happen to clip Randy on the gut, which is even better. But, point being, at that point, Monstery created distance and was basically hoping for help. 2 other guys end up hopping up, because this was a planned assassination. He fights them off for a bit by just repeatedly cracking them in the wrist, like I'm doing, while springing about like a madman, until eventually a coach driver came by, and he used the distraction to run to the town, basically. So not a terribly dramatic conclusion, but a relatively realistic one. Swing the stick repeatedly, and make it something they don't want to walk into. And again, that's kind of the foundation of his advice for Kane. He doesn't throw strikes to the legs, he doesn't do any thrusts. He just focuses on attacking that lead wrist over and over and over again, as with a knife, he can't parry that in any way, or if he can't hit the wrist, he hits the head, because you can only take so many shots at the temple before you're done for the day. But that's going to be our kind of first walkthrough. I'll probably end up doing more with Monstery if people like this, because he has a lot of really interesting stories, and like I said, first-hand accounts, as well as some others. So if you have any suggestions you want to put forth, by all means put them down in the comments, but thank you for letting me abuse you, Randy. Stop trying to stab me on country roads. And without all the way, thank you all very, very much for watching. I hope you like this new idea, and we will go over some other scenarios another time.